Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head and I'm Oles Gerduk. The Russian delegation is reinstated to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe without fulfilling international obligations. Ukraine didn't wait long to react, thus suspending its membership in the organization. To discuss this topic, we welcome to our studio today Valeriy Kravchenko, international politics expert. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So, what are your impressions about this 9-hour-long heated debate, or not heated debate, and its decision afterwards?
In a word, probably it's outrage, because what's happened, it's obviously, we awaited actually such kind of scenario, because it was it was organized, all preconditions were organized by Russia for last 2 or 3 months. But if you are talking about the solidarity, about the voices of the people which voted for such decision, and we could say that yes, Russian blackmailing was successful, and actually Europe losing some of its values in favor of Russia, in favor of its blackmailing.
In your opinion, when this resolution about returning Russia to the PACE summer session, did the Ukrainian delegates look outraged or disarmed?
I could say the only compliments towards Ukrainian delegation. They fight it as lions, and they use this spam attack with more than 200 articles. They wanted to extend this document. Of course, it was only tactics.
They submitted a lot of amendments so they could prolong the process.
It was only tactics. It was only how to postpone the decision-making process. But if you are talking about the will, of the general will of all participants, of the members of parliaments of other countries, so Russia just counted very well the time and the place. Why? Because it is the session when the future Secretary General of the organization will be elected. So it's quite important, not only like on tactics, but strategic level. On this next,
it's important for them to be present at the organization without any restrictions.
Absolutely, because it's about the appointments.
This is why.
And the second point is about our elections in Ukraine, because just imagine that from our delegation, from our members of parliaments which were presented in the Strasbourg, probably just a few or even no one have the potential to be presented there in the next few years. So it was very lucky for Russia. They found that time and place, and that's probably why our members of parliaments they fight it, but no one accepted their position from our even allies. Another story is about the France. We are naming France, but they're trying to betray if they want, and if they are looking at that this betrayal is in favor of their national interests. So they're not owned in our national interests. They're not understanding what is happening. But what is happening is it's a very dangerous precedent, and it's actually it's a beginning of the end.
Of the end of what?
I could say it's not only about the organization, because Parliamentary Assembly of European Council is, of course, a very important organization, and its competence is about the human rights protection and so on. But we could say that probably it was a symbolic decision. It was a symbolic decision, and it was also symbolic towards the sanctions against Russia.
So you think that Europe is fed up by Ukraine? This is the sign?
You know, we are talking about the Ukrainian fatigue in Europe, and maybe it's not the right word, fatigue, because we are talking about the war in Europe.
Or maybe it's political will and fatigue together, against money and a lot of investment.
Money, investment, and the tactics to make business as usual. So they're just looking to Russia, to its market, to 140 million people. So it's a huge market, it's a huge opportunities. And already the Prime Minister of France visited Moscow, and on his meeting with Medvedev, he's starting to talk about the sanctions, about how sanctions are useless. And so it's a very dangerous game. Actually, that was started in the Strasbourg.
So the Prime Minister of France took the narrative on basically nullifying the impact of sanctions.
Absolutely. And why I'm talking just about not the death of this organization of Parliamentary Assembly of European Council. It's some analysts wrote a lot of articles about the death, about that in future that will be a dead organization, and the human rights will show a zero level of protection, and the people actually yes, I totally agree, because it's a green light to autocratic regimes, and it's about the responsibility. So if you are just stepping out some red lines on even on human rights, and you don't have any kind of sanctions from the international community, from the European community, probably you will go further. So another red line will be stepped out in the future, I believe so, and not even by Russia. A lot of countries, like Turkey, for example, which are having autocratism, Azerbaijan, and other countries. So it's a very dangerous game, and it's just banning the milestones of that organization, of its values. And the most dangerous is that it's the representatives of the parliaments participating in that meeting, and it's about the EU and NATO solidarity, because this is just a start. And today we are talking about the 70th anniversary of NATO. Could we speak about the solidarity with such splitted Europe? You saw this map. Who voted for and who voted against?
Yes, 118 delegates voted in favor and 62 only voted against, basically. And to me personally, it was surprising to see France, as you mentioned, and Germany and Turkey among those ones who were in favor of this decision to return Russia, because Turkey, I mean, well, Turkey, yes, it has close ties with Putin, but at the same time, Turkey is kind of in the middle of nowhere.
S14, yeah.
Yes, so, and another thing, Germany, because I remember newly elected President Volodymyr Zelensky had meetings with Macron and with Merkel, and both Macron and Merkel, they have been reassuring about their strong commitment to supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, and this is what we have now. I mean, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe was the first one to lift the sanctions imposed on Russia. But I would like to continue our discussion. This is really indeed interesting topic, but we have a soundbite from Irina Kravchenko, a Ukrainian delegate to PACE. Let's watch it.
118 депутатів цієї організації проголосували.
PACE deputies voted for Russia to pay contributions without complying with any of the resolutions of the Parliamentary Assembly. Money turned out to be more valuable than principles for them. Now these 118 European politicians are responsible for the Ukrainians killed in Donbass and Crimea, for the abuse of political prisoners. Today, those who voted for this resolution crossed out the principles of PACE on the 70th anniversary of the creation of the Council of Europe.
Of course, we will continue fighting, but what happened today was a Strasbourg collusion, and it's very dangerous for all of Europe. Next time, after another of Putin's terrorist attack, like the poisoning in Salisbury, for example, it will also be the fault of those 118 deputies.
So could you please name us more countries that supported this Russia's return, and maybe could you please tell us what countries in particular did surprise you the most about their decision?
We are talking about the southern flank of EU and NATO. It's such countries as Italy, Spain, and obviously Portugal and others. But not only. If you are talking about the northern flank, so we are talking about the Norway, which was totally for this resolution, and Iceland. And what was surprising for me, if you are talking about such surprise, because all what it was, as I said, it was just an outrage. Moldova, of course. Moldova, and with the majority of the members of parliaments, they voted for returning. And probably a half of members of parliament in Romania voted also. Nevertheless, they having the same threats, the level of threats in the Black Sea, and they totally understand our security.
Situation and the continuing threat from Russia.
Absolutely.
Just to remind the audience, these are the neighboring countries of Ukraine.
For sure. So and Slovakia, another our neighbor, and
this is very upsetting indeed. Could you think that one of the reasons is, one of the main reasons maybe, is money? Because we know that Russian delegation was restricted from participating in any sessions of PACE, and then the Kremlin boycotted the assembly by not paying their contributions, and this formed a big debt of 70 million euros. So would you think that PACE basically sold this decision to Russia for 70 million euros?
Money is important, and even Macron, President of France, during the meeting with Zelensky, mentioned about the money and about the pain and details. But of course, another idea, the main idea about that resolution, it was about the people living in Russia, which are banned with any kind of protection, of international protection, without Russia, without Russia participating in that organization. For these people, which are talking about the protection for Russian citizens, I could say that just remember about the Ukrainian prisoners sitting in the Russian prisons, and with this absolutely political articles,
motives.
So conditions, and I could say that it's a double standards. We are talking about some Russian citizens non-protected, but we are just not saying about the Ukrainian citizens, and actually it's a signal. What they did, it's just direct signal about the red lines and about the values. So what you want to show? Money for Russia for functioning of this organization. What is the best for you, or values? If you are talking about the money, yes, it's essential. But values, it's much more essential for European Union, for this organization. So I believe that it's not about the choice. It's not about the choice.
Could be enough values. That's true. Well, Nina Gugadze, Georgian delegate, she said that occupation of Ukraine and Georgia, ethnic cleansing in Crimea, and Moscow's refusal to cooperate with PACE's monitoring groups, this is more than enough to insist that the Russian delegation does not regain its powers within the assembly. And also the reaction of the Estonian President Kersti Kaljulaid she was really outraged by this. She called the decision an embarrassment and said that none of the original reasons for the suspension of Russian delegation have disappeared, and this is very true. But also there was another resolution which completely changed the PACE sanction mechanism. So as far as I understand, the Assembly now can no longer suspend the delegates' rights to vote and to take part in committees, right? Despite any violations.
They cut it as their own obligations, and actually, as it was pointed, it's suicide. It's just about the mechanism.
It's the suicide of the statute of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So now they want to kind of reverse the direction, as far as I understand. So there would be all the countries as members, no matter what they do, but there is some kind of a platform for a dialogue. But would there be any value or authority behind this organization, behind the assembly after this crucial change.
Have doubts.
I am doubting that.
If I may, just to comment
Sure.
about the Georgian reaction and the Estonian reaction, it's obviously understandable because these countries
they are
neighbors of Russia.
They know what they're talking about.
And
yes.
Russia, by this decision, they're receiving a mandate to destabilize its neighbors. And it's about the future. Just looking what they're doing now. They're just provoking the Russophobia in Georgia with this incident, and it was in Moldova also the parliamentary crisis. So it's about the total destabilization. And Belarus also, they are just waiting for elections in autumn. And also they try to make this country as a full satellite. And next, they have the potential in the Balkans with the escalation of Serbia and Kosovo crisis and Bosnia and Herzegovina with Srpska Krajina. What they're doing, they're making a chaos. They're making a chaos in Europe. And they want that Europe started to be on fire. And then, when it will happen,
they will come.
They will come.
Well, one of the last focuses, just to discuss, Ukraine's ambassador to the Council of Europe, Dmytro Kuleba, is being called for consultations, and Katerina Zelenko, a spokesperson of Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Ministry, stated that the body will reconsider the relationships with the Parliamentary Assembly. What kind of outcomes could you foresee, possibly, of these consultations, and what kind of shift in the relations would you maybe also think about?
Very pragmatic shift. I'm too far from the understanding that we have to totally go out from that organization, and it's emotions. Yes, we have emotions and an emotional reaction towards that resolution, but it's the platform. It's a platform to speak and to speak to our allies, as we are talking about the allies still. And it's to the platform we could use to be opposite to Russian behavior. Just believe that Russia's all this blackmailing and all this their efforts were not just for the delegation which came to Strasbourg and to go to the corner and sitting just to be very silent. No, they will be active, very ambitious, and the main idea of Russia is to promote their agenda
on that platform. So that's why we have to be present there also.
To undermine our position, Ukrainian position. So I believe that it's our responsibility to continue this fight in the Strasbourg. And
what about Mr. Kuleba?
Some instructions. I believe that it's a good diplomat, and it's not his. Total responsibility about the decision.
Of course, this
absolutely
would never be
and I believe that he will continue that the job, and I think that all our citizens in occupied territories, in Crimea, Ukrainian citizens, in Donbass and Lugansk need the protection, need the voice of Ukraine. Saying actually that what is happening in that territories, about outrage of Russia on the territories, not only Crimean Tatars issue, but also especially we missed to speak about the Lugansk and Donetsk occupied territories and what is happening there. So we need this platform and we need to fight.
Thank you so much for this conclusion, for this powerful message, and for the interesting comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Valeriy Kravchenko, international politics expert. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned for more with UATV.